Let me move on to the next whiteboard here, which talks about who are all the parties involved and what kind of data will be available within your apps, or let's say within wherever environment that you want to advertise, and what players are involved in doing the same. When you look at, let's say you are an app install advertiser, or let's say you own your particular app, which is an Android and iOS application. So all the data that you collect is usually keyed on something we call as an identity. Identity is primarily a user that you can identify within that application. It could be for advertising use case. It is mostly IDFA or Google ID, but you internally would probably be having a CRM, which will also have an identity of your own. That is what you use internally as something to identify a user. Now, these needs to be linked to what entities outside can identify, which is where an identity as a separate topic will come in, which probably we'll cover later. But related to this identity will have a lot of what your data sources whatever the data you've collected about the user is tagged with. This could be demographic data that you have collected, which is around, let's say, age, gender, and a bunch of characteristics. It could be geographic data to say, okay, this is all the location details about the user that I have collected with consent, obviously. And then contextual data, like where was this user, what was the user doing, and what are the things that users do when they get onto your particular application. Then the last and final thing, which is mostly very important, is behavioral data. This behavioral data is mostly about what kind of a persona is this user? Is he a moviegoer? Is he I mean, depending on the kind of application that you provide to the user, you can categorize these users into multiple behaviors and segment your audiences based on this. Now, this is all the data that will be sitting in your either in your CRM, or it's something that you probably can generate. But this today's whole topic is about how do you use this when you want to do some sort of media activation. That's primarily what we are looking at. When we talk about media activation, you would be using one of these three sources, right? You use either DSPs, you work with SSPs or exchanges, you use ad networks, and lastly, you probably use a bunch of social channels for your marketing campaigns. Now, all of these activation channels will require some of the data that we spoke about to run efficient campaigns that are required, which we spoke about earlier, which is app install or any sort of other KPIs that we were talking about. To do this, basically from your app, where you have all this data, to activate using one of the things that I mentioned, you need these platforms that I'm talking about now. These are all the different, there are a lot of jargons here, but let me try and cover each one of those. These are all the technology vendors that you possibly should be working with in order to activate your data and provide that to some of the media companies that are out there. When I say media companies, advertising companies that are out there. Let's talk about companies which connect data from one platform to another, like mParticle, Segment. These are classic companies which kind of work in the space of connectors, where they provide a way in which they share your data with multiple other vendors. You don't have to integrate 10 SDKs. You don't have to integrate with 10 different players. They are responsible for piping the data sets that you have with identity, of course, and pass it on to multiple other players in the ecosystem. Then you have what we call as MMPs. MMPs stand for Mobile Measurement Partners. You definitely need to work with them if you are an app install advertiser, and MMPs are responsible for using your data for attribution and closed loop optimization measurement use cases. The names here are AppsFlyer, Branch, Kochava, and the likes. Now there are the third set of companies called CDPs. These are called customer data platforms. I mean, there is a difference between, I'll cover two things together, which is CDPs and DMPs. They have a nuance in how each of them work, but at the end of the day, both of them help you in providing your data sources to them, and they help in activation. The difference being a lot of CDPs are hosted and resides within your system in most cases, and actually constitute of customer data. When I say customer data, it includes all the CRM that you have. And they solve for a lot of the use cases that we spoke about around segmentation, overlap analysis, figuring out how many users I have for a particular kind of audience and segment, and eventually, activating that to a DSP or all the media activation platforms I was talking about here. A similar use case is also, satisfied by DMPs. The likes of Adobe, Adobe, Bluekai, Salesforce, and a lot of these guys have Crux, right? These are all DMPs. These are called data management platforms. Now, these are really large companies who not only utilize your data, but also help in providing third-party data. Like if your use case is to enrich your data with some of the other companies' data, you need to work with a DMP. They also, help in activating this data within the activation layer of DSPs and SSPs. So that's about CDPs and DMPs. Now there are the last two platforms, which is MAPs here. So these are actually mobile automation platforms. Think of this as a platform which lets you segment and run in-house marketing campaigns, be it push notifications, be it email notifications. These are all very important in your retention strategies and growth strategies. None of this will be possible without you sharing data to them. A classic example would be, there is a user who's stuck, doing something within your app, and you need to nudge him to move to the next stage. The first thing that you would do is use one of these platforms to send him a push notification to go back into the app. And there are companies to do this, the likes of Lean Plum, the likes of AppBoy, which is now called, I think, Braze, right? So all of these companies help you, and More Engage, of course, they help you in doing automation for your user base, and help in such use cases which are not necessarily advertising but marketing side. Now, the last and most important and growing platform that we are seeing recently is CMPs. These are called as consent management platforms. And if you're a large customer, a large app developer with tons of data, you need to be definitely working with one of these. These guys help in managing your data when it comes to privacy and compliance standpoint, be it GDPR, be it CCPA. How do you get consent from users? Can this data be utilized for certain use cases that you're looking at? Everything that we spoke about requires consent nowadays. You need to tell the user that you're monetizing this data, you're using it for advertising. And there are platforms that are specially designed to manage consent. There are multiple companies like OneTrust, LiveRamp's product also is a part of this. But these are all a class of products which we call as, CMPs, or consent management platforms. Now these are, variety of different platforms out there to manage a lot of your use cases, starting from, data activation all the way to consent management, but definitely useful in your journey as an advertiser.